Collier County President's Council, Greater Naples Better Government Committee, Naples Press Club, Pelican Bay Property Owners Association, East Naples Civic Association, Golden Gate Area Civic Association, and Golden Gate Estates Area Civic Association. They're all listed on your program. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're all delighted to welcome you to this Candidates Forum for candidates for mayor for the election March 15th, 2016. We thank you for your interest and your attendance. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes any candidates or political party. Our mission is to encourage informed and active participation in government. We thank these candidates for their willingness to run. And if you haven't done so already, would you please turn off your cell phones? We're very fortunate to have Jeff Lytle, retired editor of the editorial pages of the Naples Daily News, as our moderator for this evening.
Thank you. I'd like to reiterate Charlotte's request for anybody standing in the back of the room, and you're welcome to stand, but please keep the doorways clear for safety purposes, and thank you very much. Let's make the most of our terrific opportunities here this evening. The opportunities are the candidates to be heard and opportunities for the voters to hear them. The three candidates seated before you for Mayor of Naples, they're seated alphabetically. They're seated alphabetically from your left: Bill Barnett, Teresa Heitman, and John Sorey. Let's have a large round of applause for our candidates. Candidates have been informed that the first question will allow a response of up to 2 minutes for the candidates to give their backgrounds that qualify them to be mayor. The second question and answer will allow up to 3 minutes for the candidates to inform us of their goals and their important reasons for running. Then we'll begin the rounds of questions that have been gathered from the organizing and supporting organizations. Candidates will have up to 2 minutes to respond to each, and I have advised the candidates that if they want to rebut or comment on something another candidate says, we will allow that. We just ask them to get my attention, please, so I'll play traffic cop. And also, of course, the audience has a chance to submit questions by writing it out on the index cards available in the back of the room and just hand it to one of the ushers. The questions will be reviewed to reduce redundancy, and we may not get to all of your questions. The candidates have all assured me they will stay after school to answer any of the questions that we don't get to in the forum setting. Now, with that, and also the candidates will also conclude with a 1-minute closing summary, please, and we'll start that one with Mr. Sorey and go the other direction. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce the woman in the room that has all the real power at this meeting tonight, and that is the timekeeper. She's from the League of Women Voters. A big round of applause for Joyce Fletcher. Now, question number 1, up to 2 minutes. Mr. Barnett, please give us your background and that qualifies you to come back to being mayor, as you have been in the past.
Thank you, and good evening, League of Women Voters. Thank you very much. Fellow candidates and all of you that are endearing us tonight. I don't think we've ever played to a standing room only crowd, so this will be a first. I want to talk a little bit about my biography first and how I got here. A little bit about family. I think maybe I read something a little bit differently about the first 2 minutes, but that's okay, where we were supposed to say how we got here and a little bit about family, job, et cetera. I'm a 43-year resident of the city of Naples. I owned the Toyota BMW dealership, which I bought in 1975. I sold it to the infamous Germain in 1983, and had I been smart enough to keep it, you would have seen Barnett Arena, not Germain Arena. Okay. I was fortunate enough in 1984 to be elected to city council. I've served 12 years on council and 12 years as mayor, and it spans a 32-year career. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Chris, who is sitting here. All our children went to Collier County Public Schools. We're blessed to have 8 grandchildren, 6 of them in Naples, 2 of them in Scottsdale, Arizona. And the nice thing is we have 4 graduating seniors this year. So we're going to be busy at graduation time. I'm glad to be here. I am also fortunate, and I'll get into it a little bit later on my next round, that I have the support of 3 sitting council members and a few former council members, one who is here, and as I say, a little later on when we get into the meat and potatoes of this, I'll go from there. Thank you.
Very much. Next up to 2 minutes, Teresa Heitman.
Well, thank you for coming out this evening. It is a delight to see this room filled. That's pretty rare around here unless there's a very big, a really important issue to the majority of the community. I have served on city council for 8 years. I've lived here almost for 30 years. I am married to Jeff Heitman, who probably has delivered thousands of children in this community. And I admire him for respecting my commitment throughout the community in these last 30 years and the support that he's given me. It's not always easy. Sometimes your civic and your career gets in the middle of family, and it's nice to know that you have that support to continue to do your work. We have 3 kids. We have 2 boys that are still in college. And we have a daughter, Chandler, who has just graduated from FSU with a criminology degree and a minor in psychology. She might need to go back because she has decided that she will run my campaign, and I'm humbled by that. She's young. She has the techniques and the things that I don't come to the table, like the Facebook and that kind of outreach. So we're making a good team, and I really respect the fact that she's come back to support me in running for mayor of the city. Obviously, our children went to Lake Park, Gulfview, Naples High. I've been very involved with the school system, obviously civic organizations, and the most important thing that the city council allowed me to do was to join organizations that helped me become a better councilwoman. We can't talk to one another up here. You know, Bill asked me to run. I supported John and I supported Bill, and once you're up here, you can't talk to one another anymore with sunshine. So I had to go out to the League of Cities, 411 participants throughout the state, and they really supported me. So I thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you. Next. Up to 2 minutes, John Sorey, please.
Thank you, and I also want to thank the League of Women Voters and Jeff for you being here, and for the...
That's it, John. Thank
okay.
you.
I didn't know Mr. Barnett was keeping time, so...
We better get David down here.
Remember, I told you we had it wired so I got an extra minute, so... You ready?
Okay. Let's try it, John.
It's still showing 0.
No, you're not on 2.
Okay, thank you. Again, thanks League of Women Voters and Jeff for being here, and the many other organizations that have been involved. Particularly want to thank the citizens that are here and the ones that are watching on TV, because it's important that you know what the facts are. Also want to extend my congratulations to Bill and Teresa for running. It'll be a fun run, and I think the voters will make the best choice. I particularly want to recognize Dolores, my sweetheart, for 50 years. We've been married 50 years last year, and thank you for all your support of the crazy things I've been involved with over the last 50 years. We have 2 children and 2 15-year-old twin grandsons, and I'm really the product of the American dream. Education allowed me to escape from poverty. I'm the first college graduate in my family. I put myself through school by work and scholarship. I didn't know about student loans and 6-year programs. I earned a BS in business and an ROTC second lieutenant infantry commission. I served in the most difficult job I've ever had, survival assistance officer at Fort Riley, Kansas, and then we activated the 9th Infantry Division and took a group of young men from basic training to Vietnam and served as an infantry officer in Vietnam. My background is primarily in marketing and distribution, and I was involved in a number of different companies in different product sectors where I improved those companies, and I've signed many fronts of paychecks, so I know what it means to run a company. I obtained my MBA at UT in 21 months while plant manager, working a 3-shift operation with 150 employees. This was just another one of my many 16-hour-a-day jobs. I attended the Harvard Program for Management Development. Pardon?
Time will be up, sir.
I'm sorry?
Time is up.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Okay, thank you. Now, as we advised you in advance, the next question, and this campaign might be a very important question, and you have up to 3 minutes to respond, and hopefully we'll get our timing system back. But in the meantime, up to 3 minutes on why you are running for this office at this time. And let's start again with Bill Barnett.
Oh, I thought it was going the other direction, but, all right. Thank you. And now let's get into the meat and potatoes of what this campaign is all about. Why, after 24 years, would I want to come back and be mayor? The long and short of it is I was drafted. I was asked by some citizens of this community who I admire and respect if I would consider coming back to be mayor. After careful consideration, I decided that yes, I would do it. I will tell you that the past is always nice to talk about, but I think what everybody is sitting here for is to say, well, that's great and what you did and so on and so forth, but what are you going to do for us in the future? Why do you want to do this? And I will tell you, as John said earlier, this is going to be a kind of a fun campaign. Reminds me of yesterday's football game with Brady and Manning. They might be friends off the field, but when they get on the field, there's all bets are off. The current council, I said before, I have the unique distinction of having 3 sitting council members, including our vice mayor, who's sitting here tonight, and a former council member who I very much admire and respect, Gary Price, is also here tonight. That is unprecedented in city elections. I can't ever remember that happening, and I don't think it ever has. It means a lot. What will I do when I'm elected mayor? And I will say that since I was first elected, which was which was many years ago, public safety was my first and foremost concern. It still is, but we'll add health to that right now. I want to take a very aggressive approach with something that all of us can't stand, and that's traffic. And I know the technology is there. I have talked with our city manager a little bit about it. I want to ask, with the support of the council, the new council members that are going to be on board, to get behind me, work with the county, work with the state, and let's get these traffic lights synchronized. Now, the other night when we were at Bayfront Property Owners, I brought that up, and John said, Mr. Barnett doesn't really know that all our lights are synchronized. Well, they're not, unless you know something that I don't. I want to redo the agendas, the way that they're set up, so people aren't sitting here all day waiting for their turn to speak. the public especially. I want to enhance our advisory boards and get them more involved than they are. And my 3 minutes is done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 3 minutes, Teresa Heitman. Why are you running?
Well, some people might say I'm an outsider, or I don't go along to get along, and maybe I'm not a team player, or better yet, that I'm the no woman. So, yes, I may be guilty of being outside of the main voting block on many issues. I'm really guided by my conscience, my values, and of course, factual information that often is that is brought to council that sometimes it's really hard to uncover. When I see the much venerated Land Development Code and the comprehensive plan being repeatedly compromised and diluted with situational text amendments and by deviations in development projects, I feel that it's not the best interest for the city that I love. And I can only proceed on what I believe that is best for the members of the public. And that's how I vote. I vote that way for the members of the public. And that means whether you're a resident or you're a business owner. You know each of the mayors or the, not contestants, but candidates running for this race.
Contestants.
We're contestants. And I've served with them for 2 terms. Literally, they've been in office for almost over 2 decades over my experience here on the dais. And I think that it's time for new leadership. If you choose to pick me as your next mayor, which I am running because people have encouraged me to run, that I am the voice of the people, and that's why I chose to come in and run for mayor. Members of the general public will no longer be rebuffed. They'll be respected and given the time and the patience of listening that is deserved to them and be a part of that process. And as your mayor, I will give you the clear, strong, goal-oriented leadership to address the variety of issues that come before us with balance.
Thank you.
Now,
Now,
you got a minute left.
You do,
Seriously.
you have up to-
Oh,
That's a
good,
warning.
because
Yeah.
I,
That is the
No,
yellow
you
light,
should
not the
know
red
that.
light.
I'm sorry, yes, you should know that. The one other reason I think is that Naples deserves a change in leadership. It's not to say that we are different. John and Bill and I are 2 different, or they're different than I am in our leadership skills. And that's what we need. We need a change. Naples deserves a change, and they have requested a change, and so I've come forward to lead and become your next mayor.
Thank you. Now, John, up to 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm running for a 2nd term as mayor because I want to build on the accomplishments of the 1st term and complete a number of items that are critical to the quality of life in Naples. Every day when I wake up, I think about how we can make this city better. As all of you know, I get things done. I think this is the basic difference between me and the other 2 candidates. I'm a businessman. As mayor, I have different customers, the citizens, but customer service, getting things done, and being available are still the keys to success. We're going to have a very different council with 3 new members. My leadership, experience, ability, and historical knowledge will be the key to the success of the new council. You've heard comments about style. I trust you want the best, most qualified person to lead your city. You heard about my skill set earlier, and I'm by far the most qualified candidate in the race. I'm straightforward, fact-based, focused on results, respectful, and responsive. I've never had a complaint about getting back to individuals, being out in the community, attending over 200 events a year, and taking whatever time's required to be your mayor. I'm here year-round. These are critical traits. When you look at the body of work that we've accomplished the last 4 years, it's pretty exceptional. And I do want to point out that I can't get anything done without 4 votes of council. And I want to particularly recognize Gary Price here because he did a lot of great work on the pension reform that we did. And although he and I disagreed on the final bill, I think it's better than it was. You can look at what we've done, but I agree with Mr. Barnett. We want to look at the next 4 years. We want to maintain the Naples brand. We want to continue our financial sustainability, continue the alternative water build-out, complete Baker Park, maintain the beaches, complete the Freedom Memorial, rebuild the city dock, and do the hundreds of things that I do on a continuing basis in discussion with our city manager. I'm committed to remain accessible and responsive to citizens, fellow elected officials, businesses, and nonprofit organizations. When you hire me to be your mayor for 4 more years, I'll continue to listen to all of the city voters first and foremost, blend this input with many other constituents that impact the city, place these positions within the reality of how we have to get things done to carry out your vision for our city. I thank the endorsement of the Collier County Republican Committee, the 140 members of the Committee of 100, and over 500 contributors and volunteers that are supporting me, and respectfully request that you vote for me for your next mayor.
Thank you. Now, we move on to the questions. This first one is from a citizen we received in advance, and we'll start the answers on this round. We'll start with Teresa Hyden. Question. On October 21st, the Naples Fire Department sent a letter of no confidence in the fire chief to the city manager with copies to the city council. That was over 3 months ago. If you were elected mayor, when, not how, are you going to resolve this issue?
Well, if I were mayor, I would have known that was coming, that there was no vote of confidence in the fire chief. And I certainly would have tried to have made it aware as a concern. However, that didn't happen, and will support the continued investigation or the inquiry of the accusations that were made or the concerns that were made by the union. And I respect our fire chief. I supported our fire chief, and until the union came forward and made the claims that were presented to council, I immediately requested information to be found factual or non-factual, and that information to be brought to us immediately. To me, this has gone on far too long. This inquiry should be completed, and there should be consequences, or there should be some results in the findings that have been given.
Thank you. Up to 2 minutes, John Sawyer.
Thank you. Well, we did hear some rumors, but until you have a document, you can't react to rumors. But the reality is that under state law, firemen, including the chief, has certain rights, and we're following those rights. We're doing the investigation, and there'll be a report out, and then at that point in time, council will be able to make their own decision. There have been some comments made that haven't been particularly helpful, and unfortunately, we may end up in a legal issue with this. So I would just caution council to be careful what they say, because it could come back to be an issue for us if we do end up in litigation.
Up to 2 minutes, Bill Barnett.
Thank you. I'll take a little different approach on the answer, because the brunt of that question, I think we are doing what we're supposed to do, and that is, our charter is very clear on what our responsibilities are as council people and as mayor. We are basically not allowed to cross, there's a line there, and we are not allowed to cross that line by getting involved in investigations or allegations, votes of no confidence. Are we upset or concerned about them? Of course we are. But that's why we have a very able city manager. We have a very good assistant city manager. I think they are following the steps that need to be taken so that it can be resolved. But as far as council interference or involvement, we have to stay out of it. Thank you.
Anybody care for a further word on this?
I'll just say, Bill, I would agree with you that the charter is very clear that we do not manage, we lead and we make policy. And it is the city manager's responsibility to manage the fire chief.
Further?
That's true. No argument.
Okay, next question. What is your position on a merger slash closer cooperation between the North Naples Fire District and other fire departments as suggested by the Daily News editorial board? What about consolidation of all fire districts, including the city? And what about adding ambulance services? That should be easy, John. Why don't you go first?
Well, I'm going to defer that question to Mr. Easton, but, but I was a early vote for looking at this, and Mr. Moss and I met with the other fire districts to talk about it. And I generally find the citizens are supportive of consolidation if we can have the same quality of service at a competitive price. One of the challenges is we think our rate for fire is much less than some of the other fire districts. So I'm always hesitant to place an additional tax burden on our citizens. But we will continue to look at this, and one of the things that makes absolute sense is functional consolidation. I think when you look at the King County, Seattle approach, there's some benefits to having a consolidated service where you have both ambulance and fire together. The reality is we're not in the fire business. We're in the medical business, and how best to deliver that, and Marvin has done great work as well as many other people, but I think it's something that we're going to have to change from an efficiency and effectiveness standpoint. This is something that needs to be done, and we'll continue to work on it. And as I said, I would support consolidation if we can do it efficiently and cost-effective.
Same question, Mr. Barnett. Would you like to hear it again?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I heard it once, that was enough. I agree with what John said, but I want to add to it. I think that every citizen, whether you're sitting here or you're watching on television or you're going to read about it in the paper, we want what's going to work for us best, okay? As simple as that. If, God forbid, one of us has a heart attack tonight or something else, or a stroke, we want the best possible service as fast as we can get it. If consolidation is the answer, and if the price is right, and if it's going to benefit the citizens of the city of Naples, when that day happens, I'll support it. Okay? Meanwhile, we have all kinds of experts that are, you can read about it daily, that are analyzing, and so let's just see what the bottom line comes out, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Well, this is a great question for someone who received this question 8 years ago, and right after I was elected, and I was approached about consolidation, and I think consolidation for the county is a definite must. There is excessive leadership and funds that can be, and services that can be consolidated. However, as a city, the reason that you are in the city is you are willing to pay extra for your services. You want higher standard in services. Sharing services with the county is not necessarily what the community wants. When this was brought forward to us, I support it for the county, and I said once that has been consolidated, you can look at where they are, and the services are to a high standard, the standard that the community wants, then we would consider it. But I was not willing to be the cash cow for the county and go into the county services when we've been providing services under our 1.18 millage rate, and we haven't had to raise taxes for it, and there's not a special taxing district. So it didn't make sense from that fiscal point of view, and until I am guaranteed that there's not going to be bickering and fighting among the commissioners like we have seen, I think the stability is better with the leadership within the city.
Would anybody like to add anything to that? Okay, let's move on. Next question. We'll start with Bill Barnett. What is your position on new construction on Fifth Avenue in regard to height restrictions, ratio of residential to commercial, and how it may change the character of the area?
Okay. Tough question, but a fair one. Everybody is referring to the latest developments on Fifth Avenue South that Phil McCabe just did, that was approved by council. And I have as usual, a little different outlook, because I'll just go back in time a little bit, because when Fifth Avenue South was just the only place around, mom and pop stores, et cetera, there was change, and I'm going back a lot of years. When Dewani was hired, because we were losing Fifth Avenue South, he came in, we listened to him, and we did what needed to be done to make Fifth Avenue South vibrant and the heart of our city again. The big, tough balance point was keeping the commercial out of the residential, okay, that surrounds Fifth Avenue South, and I'm getting to exactly where I need to be. Residents fought and bargained with council for years, and they pleaded their case, and we listened to them as far as, we don't want Key West, we don't want bars up and down Fifth Avenue South. Finally, a developer decided, let's try mixed-use residential. He did that. It was a tough sell, and then it caught. And now we have mixed-use residential. My question back, and I have said this in the last 2 months, is if we don't like what's going on there, we're not going to lose all our restaurants, that's for sure. But if we don't like mixed-use residential with commercial on the bottom, beautiful residences on top, they're not cheap. I think some of you know that. And what do we want? And that's the issue. So thank you. That's my answer.
Thank you. 2 minutes.
Well, I believe that it's time for us to reevaluate where we have led or allowed petitioners and developers to lead the city. I think they're very important to our community. They reinvest money back in, and we need that for economic vitality. However, to me, there has been a powerful group of developers that think that they are entitled to the favor of the council. And I think we need to stop and take a look at what we have approved, how it has affected the community, and realize that people moved here because they don't want to be Miami. They moved here for the simple elegance that we are in the city. And so that's the responsibility of council, to look at fair ways to help development and build the economy for redevelopment, but not to give away our city.
Thank you. We might want to look back at what Fifth Avenue looked like in the 90s. And some of you may know, some of you may not know, that 40% of the storefronts were boarded up. And the property owners, not the city, brought in a urban designer by the name of Dewani, and out of that was developed the Fifth Avenue Overlay District. And if we don't like the code associated with the Fifth Avenue Overlay District, then we should change it. But that code was envisioned as an urban street and pull the stores up to the sidewalk at the property line for window shopping and that sort of thing. So that's how it developed. And the challenge that we on council has, how do we balance all the different entities? And, you know, I've got some good friends that are not particularly happy with some of the things that have happened. But at the same time, it's that balance. And what do we want Fifth Avenue to look like? Do we want it to be all new stores and buildings and that sort of thing? And I think that's the challenge that we've got. So what I'm doing is listening to the citizens, and you have a group close to Fifth Avenue that has one perspective, and the farther you get away from Fifth Avenue, you have different perspectives. And again, the balance issue is how do we as council measure what's best for the entire city, what's best for each sector, and that's what I try every day to do. And I think we again need to be pretty careful. We've got some litigation about this particular building, so I'm not going to get into that building, but we'll continue to listen to the citizens and determine which is the best way to go.
Anybody else? Anything to add?
Well,
Go.
I disagree with the fact that we've had balance. we have lost sight of why we even have the CRA and the tax increment financing. It was based on blight, not the blight of Fifth Avenue. That was part of it. It was to revive Fifth Avenue, and I support that. We needed that vibrance. But it really was to look at the community of River Park and that area that has been ignored. Those neighborhood plans have been ignored, and there's not been one bit of positive change except for lights 20 years ago. That is what I disagree with.
John or Bill?
Okay.
John?
Well, in all due respect to Ms. Heitman, I think that the River Park Pool, the community center, and some of those things, and it is a complete area that we need to look at, but there's been significant dollars spent in the River Park area, and also the D downtown and the Fifth Avenue. So again, it is a bigger area, but the particular issue that we're talking about is more the Fifth Avenue overlay question versus the CRA question.
Okay, Bill, would you like the last word?
No, thank you.
Next question.
Oh, but
This has several parts, so let's do down on this one. We are Seagate residents concerned about water quality, navigation quality, and dredging scheduled for February, and a permanent solution to all these problems that have been neglected year after year after year. We need free-flowing tidewater and most likely a small bridge at Seagate Drive to Naples Cay to solve the problem. Teresa Heitman, would you like to go first?
Well, I think that it first starts with the committee that, in the Moorings Bay Committee, who actually, it wasn't under their responsibility to bring it to City Council about the water quality issues or the dredging issues in some of their purview. I think that the real issue behind this is we do not, as a council or the management, put our natural resources department and their qualifications and the expense that it is to the city, which is well worth it. They have expertise that look at the environment. They should have been involved with this committee, with the Moorings Association, and understanding these issues within the neighborhood plan so that Natural Resources Department could have addressed it through capital improvement projects and brought it through the budget. It's a serious situation, and it's disappointing to me that it's come to this point where we are at.
Well, again, I have to respectfully disagree with Ms. Hyman. I was there. I was the chair, and back to the skill set, you know, with the things that I've done, I was chair of the Coastal Advisory Committee, and the previous county commission had given the responsibility for the dredging to the Coastal Advisory Committee. I was at Seagate with the residents, and we were within days of being able to dredge that clam path. And the reality is the Board of County Commission and politics got involved, and there was a big dispute about the width of the dredging. And, you know, I feel like that the Seagate boat owners have a right to be able to navigate out to the Gulf. Unfortunately, we lost the vote, and the county commission made the decision to give Clam Pass back to the Pelican Bay Services Division. I think that was a bad decision, but that was the decision. And then they had to start over again because they changed the dredge template and those sort of things. And so we are where we're now. They did an emergency dredge with a backhoe to keep it open to protect the mangroves, which probably had to be done. Unfortunately, it's going to end up costing all the citizens through the tourist tax revenue probably 3 times what it would have cost to done the dredge when it should have been done. So there's a lot of politics. I've been there at bat for the Seagate residents, and it's something that we need to continue to look at. And there's some myths. You know, the myth was that Moorings Bay was contaminating Clam Bay. The reality is the water flows the other way once we really got into it. But it's something we got to continue to work on, but it's got to be worked with the county commission.
Thank you. Bill Barnett.
I'll add on to what John said, and Teresa, with all due respect, our Natural Resources Department was involved. Mike Bauer was involved. They were the ones that were giving us reports when all this was going on, but it's absolutely right. If Seagate has always kept us in the loop, and if they need us, you know, what can we do? What can you do to help us? They have never stopped asking, and we have never stopped trying. But it turned into ugly politics, and John's correct. Our hands are tied right now. Thank you.
That's it?
Yep.
1 minute.
I would say that this is another example of the county commission and the city not being able to work with us and creating trouble, or not creating trouble, but not helping us in working out issues. So there's something wrong with the communication. If our department was working with the county, then this situation would not continue to happen.
Thank you. John?
Well, that's totally incorrect. It was a vote by the county commission, and if you want to get the facts, talk to Dr. Buscher. Dr. Buscher and I worked hours on this, as well as several other individuals up there, the Dykmans and others. So it had nothing to do with relationships with the county commission. It had to do with a new commissioner and commitment to the Pelican Bay Services Division, and that's how that went down.
Bill?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take a moment for a word from our sponsor, which is the safety crew at City Hall. If you could please, if you're going to stand in the back of the room, that's great, but please stand away from the doors. Okay? There, thank you very much. Next question, and this is for John Story, and it's also about you, Mayor. It says, question for Mayor Story. Have you taken a full-time position with Naples Players? If so, how could you do both jobs? Second question, along the same line, how will you have enough time to be mayor with a full-time job at the Sugden Theater?
Great question and a fair question. As I said earlier, the way I got an MBA, I had a 3-shift manufacturing operation, and I was in to see third shift all day with first shift and second shift, and then went to school for 4 hours. I've always worked 80, 90 hours a week. I've never had a constituent question my dedication to the mayor's job. I think if you look at the hours, and if you ask the city manager, if you look at the hours that I spend on the city and all the other activities like the Coastal Advisory Committee, the Florida League of Mayors, the Tourist Development Council, and I'm proud that I'm able to do both jobs, and I think I can do both effectively. And you might be interested, the Naples Players job is about a 50% volunteer. I have a passion for that job, and what we do at the Naples Players, we look at the market value of that job, and I was dumb enough to do the same thing Jim Rideout did, to agree to take that job at 50% of the market. So it's part volunteer that I contribute my salary back as in kind, but there is no problem to being able to do both jobs, and we certainly have never had a requirement, nor have we had a mayor that spent full time on the mayor's job.
Thank you. Bill, would you like to comment on that question?
Yeah, I would. Welcome to politics. I'm not 100% in agreement with what you said, John. And I do respect you, but I don't know how you can possibly be a full-time mayor and have a second job. I don't know what you make, but I guarantee it's more than you make here. And I come down to City Hall a lot during the day, and you keep saying you're totally accessible and here and whatever. I've heard from other people as well, they don't see you. And I don't know whether this community at where we are today, with the issues that we have facing us for the future, want anybody other than a full-time mayor.
John?
Well, think that's very interesting you would bring that up because for the 8 years you were mayor, you spent the summers in New York. You weren't here. I was here and frequently did city council things while you were in New York. So I guess maybe things have changed from those 8 years, and I don't know about before that, but I do know for a fact those 8 years I was here a lot more, and I've been here the 4 years a lot more than you were here in the city as mayor.
Well, that's certainly debatable, and as far as, I believe council takes a summer break, and I believe that's from June through August, so if I want to be in New York, I guess I can. And with technology today, it's not an issue where you spend your vacation, but I'll stick with what I said earlier.
Teresa Hayden.
Well, I'll just say that I think both of them are self-serving, unfortunately. I don't mean to make that funny. I
is
just
funny.
think that this is a political conversation of who can attack who, and not really about who is willing to be here for this community and be at what their interests are and represent them. So go ahead, boys, be politic. Go politic.
Boys, anybody like the last word?
Gentlemen.
The
They're
gentleman? That it?
No,
Move on.
I'll take the last word on
Okay.
that. You know, it isn't, this is not Trump politics, but this is a campaign, and all three of us want to win it. We're going to put facts on the table, we're going to put our thoughts on the table, at least I hope we are, and not duck anything that is thrown at us. So I'm not apologizing, and I don't think I need to apologize. I just said it the way that I felt it, and I hope the rest of you do the same.
Well, when you can't run on substance, you have to look for things like the 2 jobs and different kind of things. So, that's the way it's going to be. That's the way it's going to be.
Yep, I guess so.
Thank you. Let's move on. Question. And Bill, you get to go first. Would you support open gun carry in Naples? If not, what would you do if Tallahassee passes it?
Well, the answer is no, I would not support open gun carry in Naples, and if Tallahassee passed it, I think that I, along with the majority of citizens in this community, would do anything we could, whether it's lawsuits or anything legal we could, to prevent that from happening, period.
Well, I think that it is your right to carry a gun, and I do think that we have responsible citizens. I'm not looking to have guns be brought into restaurants and throughout this community. However, it is a constitutional right for us to carry, and it's not something that I would say I would be opposed to, and would be interested to find out the details of that bill before I made any further comments.
John?
Well, I think this is another great example of the challenges that we've had, and Gary Price can tell you firsthand the fights we've had with Tallahassee. I think that we should have local control. We in our community make the decision, and one of the things that I would look at, as we have done with short-term rentals and other things, we've passed a ordinance locally so that we could indeed preclude Tallahassee from telling us what to do. At the same time, I am a hunter. I am supportive of the right to bear arms. I think open carry is maybe a little too far. I think having a permit to carry a weapon, especially in the times that we live, is something that's a right of our citizens, and until we change the interpretation of our Constitution, then we do that. And, I did not sign the Mayors Against Gun. I've had several requests to continue that, and I have not signed that because, again, I think it's something that our citizens, but based on the discussions I've had with our citizens, I don't think there's support for open carry, but there is the support to have the registration and the proper training so that you can have a weapon if you decide to do so.
Great. Any rebuttals?
Yes. Not necessarily a rebuttal, but I was proud to serve on mayors against illegal guns. Back when I was mayor and Mayor Bloomberg had initiated it, there were a lot of us that supported it. It had nothing to do with Second Amendment rights. It had to do with the legal loopholes, which we all know today from what we see out there, that we wanted Congress to close, and that's what we were fighting for. So it wasn't against mayors for illegal guns, or against.
Again, I think that it's something that, this is a political issue, and we're just trying to find out what we can pit against one another, and I'll stick and wait for the legislation to come through and discuss this with our community to find out where they want to head.
Thank you. Next question. for you, should the tourist tax be increased from 4% to 5%? Would you like to go first?
Me?
Teresa, please. It's Teresa's turn, I think.
Oh, Teresa, I'm sorry, sure.
He's confused, not confused, but it was we were told that it was going to continue the 1, 2, 3, so that's why he thought it was his. But that's okay.
Whatever.
Thank you. I have a concern about the tourist tax. I have a concern that when we go to a referendum and the voters say where they want that money to be spent, and then we get a committee that decides the way they want it spent and doesn't pay attention to the establishment of that tax. And we've seen it before, and I'm very concerned and would like to support it because the chamber and the county are continuing to bring the tourism in. We've always been a community that welcomed visitors. We wanted tourists. We wanted to welcome them. And now they are putting a burden on the economy of the parks and recs within the city. And we now are fighting with the city on whether that we get enough, the county, whether we get enough money from them for the usage of our parks. So I think it's a very sensitive area. And again, it is how it is set up, and if we are allowed to twist the terms of that tourist tax and make a change in how that 1% where it would go to.
Okay, again, back to being involved and knowing the details. I serve on the Tourist Development Council, and that's something we've had lots of discussions about. But just to be sure everyone understands, the fallacy when the original tax was agreed to, it was not very well written. So it didn't say X percent has to go to the beach. And to me, it's all about renourishing our beaches and maintaining the quality of our beaches, which is our #1 item from our tourists. So what happened initially, 60% of the money went to the beaches, 40% of the money went to marketing. Then, as we see lots of governmental entities look at opportunities, a 3rd cent was passed, and they said, oh, well, here's some money. We can take money from the tourist tax and run our county-owned museums. We're the only county in the state that uses tourist tax money to fund operating of county-owned museums. All the other entities, whether it's the conservancies or the zoo or whatever, they have to fund their way. And we've had discussions at TDC about requiring the county-owned museums to fund their way. So it all goes back to how you divvy up the pot. Now we're up to 4%, and we're 30-odd% going to the beaches versus the 60%. And the reality is we probably need about $5 million a year to be set aside for beach renourishment. We're actually about 3 or a little over, depending on the numbers as far as what comes in. And so if we ever get to the point that we don't get the FEMA support, we're going to be hard-pressed to have enough money to renourish our beaches. And if you've looked at them, we've had significant erosion, and we're going to have to affect that. So it's something that we should add the 5th penny, in my opinion, and restructure and guarantee the beaches get the proper amount.
I agree with restructuring. I agree with the 5th penny. We lose our beaches, we're done, okay? And we've all been saying it for years. And as the commission, as the county commission changes, so does the TDC. they're always looking for a way to, as was said earlier, we had a nice, it was fine at the 60/40, at least we were making it, and then it's a nickel here, a nickel there, and the next thing you know, here we are. We're going to be sitting here, well, why aren't you renourishing the beaches? Look at the weather last week and what we lost, and I can guarantee you it's going to be a struggle. So we will just continue to try and lobby and see if we can get that. I'm in favor of the fifth penny.
It was, can I just?
Okay, just briefly, please.
Briefly, I'll just tell you that I think that looking at the beaches and looking at a statewide dredging is really where we need to go. We are not the only city with beaches in need, and that we need to have a different approach as a statewide approach.
Yeah, I've got to respond to that. The reality is, I think, I would agree with Ms. Heitman that if we look at a statewide funding policy, but a statewide to own dredges, I've been out on the dredges, and the reality is most of the dredge operators would have a hard time passing our requirements as far as hiring in the city. We talked about a dredge for the city, but the reality is it takes a different dredge for Clam Pass versus the offshore dredge and that sort of thing. So I think a statewide funding source would be good, but to get into the business of dredging with a government entity, well, I would not agree with.
Thank you. Bill?
No, I wouldn't agree either.
Okay. Oh, what?
That's all.
That's it?
Yeah.
I didn't say funding. Let me
Let's-
clarify.
I know.
Plan.
Thank you. Let's move from the beach to the bay. Question. Cleanup of Naples Bay is still an issue. What will you do to finish the job?
Great question, and probably nothing that I've spent more time on than Naples Bay. I was fortunate to be appointed by Governor Bush to the Big Cypress Basin Board, served on that board, and served as vice chair for a number of years. And there is a plan. The reality is we need about 60 million gallons of water a day coming into Naples Bay. We've been able to reduce it from about 260 down to about 200. And there are plans and efforts currently underway to rehydrate North Belmead. And what happened was Naples Bay used to drain the city, very small, about 12, 15 square miles. Now, it's 125 square miles predicated by the Golden Gate Canal. When that canal was dug, it was just a straight canal dumping all the water into Naples Bay. So the salinity is way out of kilter. We've got to continue to work on that. I'm working very closely with the county commissioners to prioritize North Belmead. That'll take about 60 million gallons a day. We've got a consumptive use permit for the city to take 10 million gallons a day, and that's part of our alternative water system. And one of the things that I'm particularly proud of in support of council, including the previous council, was the commitment to move toward a alternative irrigation system. We were using several million gallons a day of drinking water for irrigation and dumping 6 million gallons a day of affluent water into the bay. We have not dumped one drop of affluent water in the bay for the last 2 years. We put in the ASR wells. Marvin Easton deserves great credit for Port Royal, and we're making great progress, but we've still got lots of work to be done as far as Naples Bay.
To add on to that, we haven't talked much about our Natural Resources Department and how hard they work. Even though they're small things, it has been a work in progress for many, many years. I will say to you that there was a time not so long ago where the talk was get rid of the Natural Resources Department. They're not needed in the city of Naples, and I want to tell you they are needed. Whether it's just the simple thing of planting oysters, replanting things. I know it sounds goofy, but it's true, and every little bit helps. John gave the big picture. That's the little picture. So all of you watching or sitting out there need to lobby and make sure that our Natural Resources Department stays as a part of the city. It's integral.
So we have had 3 issues this evening that have brought into the county commissioners, and the reason that we are having issues is because we can't seem to work with them. I had this brilliant thought that when I first ran 8 years ago, that I would be able to coordinate and be the liaison between the city and the county. I think it's clear that there's a failure, that management wants to work with the county, and that's why we choose to, only if we have to, and only on certain issues, do we really try and have that relationship and make things better for Naples Bay. I think the other issue is the fact that it's a priority in spending. It's going to take a lot of money to, not just the beach outfalls, but within our community. We are established to put the stormwater into the bays. Now we know that's not what you do. So we need to address it instead of ignoring it and saying, we can't do anything about it, it's too costly. We're Naples, I think we're 3rd in the country for the largest tax base and millionaires, and they're committed to changing Naples Bay, then we can make a change. So I don't think that it's about the 2 things that were brought up. I really believe that it's about prioritizing and making sure we address it.
Anybody care to rebut?
Yeah, I do. That's the, and again, Teresa, you brought it up about the county commission and lack of cooperation or not being able to work with them. And I have that on my list, but we ran out of time in the opening statements. I think that I know for a fact we have not had a joint city council, county commission meeting in at least 3 years. I know for a fact Linda Penniman, who's been on council for 2, has never been to one. I think that's something that I know that I would certainly work on. And as far as cooperation with the county or being a liaison, I always worked well with county commissioners. I had no problem whatsoever, and I think it's something we need to address. I don't
Well,
disagree.
the reality is we have a great relationship with the county commission until it gets down to economics. We've got 5% of the population. We pay 25% of the county property tax. And I was in some of those meetings, those joint meetings, especially talking about what's a fair share for the county to pay for their use of our parks and recs. And didn't go very far. I meet with the commissioners on a regular basis individually, and I think that the reality is, whether we like it or not, they've got the purse strings, and we have to negotiate with them, and it's not a good situation as far as the priorities and how we get dollars, but it's something we have to work on. One other quick thing, Ms. Heitman brought up the issue as far as the beach outfalls. The reality is you need to look at the numbers. We've got 125 acres we're draining. 1 inch of rain is 10 million gallons. And so the
Time, please.
ability to change the
Time,
beach
please.
outfalls is a challenge.
Last word?
Well, I will just say that we did have a watershed meeting 2 years ago with the Southwest Florida Water Management, and as sometimes we get a consultant, we have a plan, we leave it on the shelf. That's exactly what happened. We met, it was a feel-good session. We did not plan anything from the conversation and the information that was provided, and that was it.
Just FYI, we have about 12 minutes left for questions in this part of the forum before we go to closing statements and a final word from the League of Women Voters, so just FYI. This next question is from the Libertarian Party of Collier County. Question: if elected mayor, is there any policy, project, or ordinance that you would work to eliminate?
Probably a lot of them.
I believe it's Johnston.
Yeah.
Is that mine? Okay. Well, one of the things that we have done in our cleaning up of our code, we've eliminated a number of code sections. Some council members hadn't particularly agreed with that. And one of the things that we have recently talked about, and I'm committed in my next term as mayor, is to go through the code, and there's a lot of redundancies. There's a lot of code that is no longer really useful and clean those up. And I always raise the question when we talk about a particular license or whatever, it makes no sense to me to have a license that costs the city more and the business owners more than the benefit. So I think we need to look at everything, but to answer the question explicitly, yes, I think there's some things that we can eliminate. We should do a very orderly process, and the city attorney is committed to do that, and that's one of the things we'll do going forward.
And we are codifying our code now, starting to codify it and go through it as we do every X years, because there are things that are archaic and that get called to our attention on rare occasions, and we say, wow, that's been there for that long, and let's change it. So it's a work in progress.
I, first of all, wouldn't recodify and certainly wouldn't let the city attorney recodify. I think that needs to be done legally, but that's how we got into some issues already through recodification. But what I would do is I would make sure that we had good governance. I wouldn't take away, I would make sure that we had the honesty and the integrity and the ethics and just follow the good governance of this community.
Very good. Next question is for Bill Barnett. Mr. Barnett, one pillar of your campaign is your claim that you listen to citizens, implying that the other candidates don't. When the airport was pushing to extend the runway and there is substantial citizen opposition, you were presented with a petition with over 1,000 signatures opposing the extension. I'm going to take the liberty of editing this for brevity here. Bottom line, how can you reconcile your I listen better claim with these actions when you completely ignored major citizen opposition and concerns and still voted to extend the runway?
Okay. First of all, it's leadership by listening, okay, not whatever was quoted on that. And we just had a petition a couple of weeks ago of 300 signatures on the McCabe building, and most of them were Cafe Luna fans. They didn't want to see us get rid of Cafe Luna. I do listen, and I have to look at the whole city when I look at an issue, as we're all supposed to, and look at the pros and the cons, and then make a decision. The people that signed that petition were good citizens. They mean well. They still mean well. And it's a matter of balance. I do listen. I think I have a proven track record to substantiate what I just said. So, and as far as extending the runway, I was convinced with the majority of council that that was as much a safety issue as anything else. That it would lessen the noise on takeoffs. We still have our weight restrictions on airplanes at the 75,000-pound limit, okay? And although they don't believe it, I will support them on certain things that they request. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That was for me anyway.
Reese Heitman, 2 minutes if you care to.
About his listening?
Would you care to address?
What did you say, Teresa?
Well,
Did you hear anything you'd like to respond to?
I would just say that I think that Bill is a good listener. It's just who he responds to that I have the concerns. And I think that John is a good listener, but he ignores what he hears. So I think that one is a passive listener and one's an aggressive listener, and I think I'm the only one who really listens to the city and makes the hard stand, no matter what, to listen to the community and stand strong up here and represent their concerns and pay attention to who is on that petition.
Thank you. John, would you like to respond to either one of those?
Yes,
two?
thank you. I would, because I am an aggressive listener. I'm an activist mayor. I get things done. I think it's great to listen, and you've got to listen not to a small group. You know, I'm out in the community. I attend 200 events a year. I speak to lots of different groups. I talk to lots of different people. And one of the advantage of the Naples players position is I'm frequently there, and a lot of the responsibility is evening oriented. So I'm there for the plays, and so I talk to people, and they talk about city issues as well as Naples players issues. So I think the thing is, you've got to listen, but you've got to perform. That's the key thing. And as to the airport issues, we made a bad deal. We did a 100-year lease, which we shouldn't have done. There's some economic advantages of the airport, but there's some negative. If you live in the corridor where the planes fly, it's a negative.
Thank you. Next question. What is the status of Baker Park, and where do we go from here?
I get that one, I hope.
Well, actually, it's not your turn,
Is
but
it
you
my
will.
turn?
Teresa.
Teresa.
I think that Baker Park is in its rightful place, and it should have happened when the community spoke, when Vice Mayor Price was on council, and the community said, we want Baker Park, and we want it to be a passive park. We own the park. We had the option. The park was donated to us through sloppy legal or other issues. We lost the park. Then we paid to get the park back. And now we came back after the city citizens said, we want the park, we want a passive park. You've taken away our green space everywhere. Development is high. We ignored it. And now it's in its rightful place. It was expedited, and we had flaws with the park. We didn't do our due diligence. We didn't do the environmental assessment or the engineering, which, by the way, both of these gentlemen knew what it said. They were both up here. They knew the environmental issues on that park, and I insisted that we move forward in an appropriate way and do the due diligence before we started to build the park.
Okay, the reality is that we had 30-some community meetings. My council members talk a lot about listening to the public, and thank goodness Mr. Price went over with his daughter and saw the vision of that park and supported the citizens' design of that park. Yes, we knew that this park was a challenge, but there's no reason from an engineering standpoint or an environmental standpoint that there was not anything that could be overcome. And so we started off in a direction, and it was 4-3. And Mr. Price, unfortunately, one of the disadvantages of our term limits, we lose great people. He rotated off council, and we kind of went in a different direction. But regardless of the direction that we're currently going, I think it'll end up to be a great park. I'm proud of the fact that I was able to raise $5.5 million from the public sector to support this park. And some of the things that we have done, I've got some rather anxious donors, but I've been able to keep them on the reservation, and they're still committed. And we're doing now with Santec what we had planned to do with a different engineering group, but it will make it happen. DEP says there is no environmental issues with that park. Mangrove Bay is betting $100 million that you can build on that particular site. And I'm convinced we can. We'll have a great park. A lot of people have worked very diligently. We've got a gala coming up. We're continuing to keep everybody involved. And when we get it concluded, we'll all be proud. And I'm looking forward to being mayor when we cut the ribbon on that park.
You know what? So am I. So, boy, that's going to be good.
I'll invite you, Bill.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. You know, there's no sense, and I'm listening again, but I heard what you said, Teresa. One's a passive listener, one's an aggressive listener, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going there, okay? I think that as far as Baker Park goes, we are on the right track now. For anybody that's anxious, because we all get calls, I get emails, well, what's the status? What's the status? all of the prior is put behind us vis-à-vis if it's environmental, will the park, is it good to build on? I think we've gotten the majority of answers, and they are in the positive, and you are going to have a beautiful park, and it certainly will be within my lifetime. So we're getting there. Thank you.
I'd like to squeeze in one more question before we go to your closing statements. Will you work with me on concise answers on this one, please? What is your vision for the city dock, and how would you fund it?
Okay.
Sure.
I think
we-
it's your turn.
Okay. We have, and I'll be very concise, we just discussed this a week ago. Vision is we're going to have a rebuilt dock. Question is, will it be in the footprint, or will it be an expanded version, which we saw? It is an enterprise fund, but we can bond whatever we need if we have to. But we're going to have a new dock.
Well, that is a project that I have encouraged us to do. We have parks that are outstanding. I have been a supporter of the city dock, and actually, the enterprise fund was used to be drained to put into the general fund. Those dollars should have been put back into a capital improvement plan so that we could have rebuilt the dock and had those reserves in the fund. Unfortunately, we drained it. We had other priorities. No one wanted to mess with the city dock. They didn't think that it was important, and it's been neglected. It is an important asset to this community. It's important to the residents and to our visitors. And I think that if we would have handled it better through that enterprise fund, that we would have actually had a fund to be able to rebuild it and wouldn't be so costly in having to raise the rents on the people who have been at the city dock for years, 30, 40 years. So it's deserved, this community deserves it, and I have supported it.
Well, again, the reality is the city dock was in desperate financial situation. They were basically had no reserves. Fortunately, Roger Jacobson came in and turned that around. And it's really a modified enterprise fund. All the other enterprise funds pay a payment in lieu of taxes. And I supported, and the majority of council decided that we would discontinue making them pay what the utility department and other folks pay. My big concern, and I'm absolutely committed to the city dock, I think it's part of the cultural fabric of our city. At the same time, we've got to fund it. And I want to be sure that we've got the resources coming from that, and I would support a partial funding from the general fund, because a lot of our citizens walk on they may not have a boat, they do walk on the city dock, they enjoy the city dock, but the great majority of the funding for the city dock should be paid by the users. And I think we'll look at, and Mr. Bula did great, gave us some new ideas, and maybe we can do it in a two-phase. But we've got the consultant now looking at a grander city dock that would give us more slips, and there's a little bit of concern about how much we compete with the private sector. But maintaining a city dock, getting it rebuilt is a critical priority, and we will get that done, and we're moving forward with the permitting and engineering. So I look forward to cutting the ribbon on the new city dock.
Thank you. Now,
May I add something to that?
briefly, please.
Yes, I think that the process with that city dock was exactly the way that some of the other projects have been brought to this community. And it is that staff comes up with one option and we move and steamroll ahead without exploring the other options, doing the due diligence. And it was until Jim came forward did we have a second option.
Thank you. Rebuttal, John or Bill?
No,
What you said?
I'm just going to simply say leadership by listening. You said concise, and I was concise. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, closing statements or closing arguments, take your pick. John, you get to go first with 1 minute, please.
Thank you, and thank you again for being here. I think the questions and the answers tonight clearly indicate to you who has the skill set to do this job. There's a lot of work to be done. We're going to have 3 new council members, and I think that when you look at knowledge, ability, and the capability of getting this job done, I'm clearly the candidate. I request respectfully that you vote for me, and I look forward to being your next mayor. And there's literature in the back. If you have any questions, maybe that will answer those for you, and I'll stay as long as you need to stay to answer any individual questions. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Teresa.
I too want to thank the League of Women's Voters and the others who sponsored this event, because it really is part of the civic duties for us to know and understand the issues. We don't always have, like I said earlier, people who are in this room, and it's something that I would like to change. I really want to see the participation of the community back into these chambers where they're welcomed and they're respected, and when they get involved, they're not criticized. So I appreciate the opportunity to have worked with these 2 gentlemen, mayor and past mayor. I've told Bill in the past, I think he is a great figurehead for the city, and he has always enjoyed his job. And I think that John has done his job in the way he thinks that his job should be fulfilled. I am a different type of leader. I am going to listen to you, bring it to the management to make those changes in your behalf, your best behalf, and Naples deserves a change.
Thank you. Bill Burnett.
Thank you, Teresa, for the kind words. 20, well, I don't think it's funny. Being a figurehead for the city of Naples is an honor, and I appreciate that. Thank you. 24 years as an elected official, spanning 32 years. Okay, you don't get there by being Mr. Nice Guy or not listening to what has been told and said to you. Okay, I will continue to do that. And although my next statement might be perceived as pompous, it is not meant to be. But I have done more to shape the city of Naples in those 32 years than any active politician or retired politician, and I will continue to do my best for you. I would greatly appreciate your vote and your confidence as being your mayor again. Thank you so much.
In closing, we want to address you, the voters. On Wednesday, January 27th, we invite you to attend or watch the candidate forum for the City Council candidates. There are 6 candidates for 3 seats on the council. It will be held here in the chamber from 6 to 7:30 p.m. and broadcast on Comcast Channel 98. The election is March 15th for both the presidential preference primary and this election for the City of Naples. Remember, there are 3 opportunities to vote. You may vote at your assigned precinct on Election Day. You may vote in early voting polling places, which will be open March 5 through March 12th. Or you may vote by mail-in ballot, and you should go to www.colliervotes.com or call the Supervisor of Elections at 239-252-8683 to request a ballot if you have not already done so. Representatives from the election office are here and can answer questions. They're in the back. Any questions that you may have. To vote in the Naples City Council and mayor elections, you must be a City of Naples registered voter. These are nonpartisan races for a term of 4 years. To vote in the presidential preference primary, you must be registered as a Republican or a Democrat, since Florida is a closed primary state. You have until February 16th to make any changes to your registration for these elections. Please review your registration for any updates you may need to make, such as your address, your signature changes, or political party. This forum will be rebroadcast on Comcast Channel 98, the City Government Access Channel. No part of this video may be used for any promotional purposes. The League of Women Voters will also post the forum on our website. In addition, the candidates will have completed profiles, which will soon be on our website, www.lwvcolliercounty.com. Please do plan to vote in these very important elections. We want to thank Bill Moss, City Manager, and City staff for the use of this facility and broadcast of this forum. We thank you for coming and or watching tonight. And of course, another big thank you to our candidates. And with that, we'll see you Wednesday.